Well, good day. This is going to be how to add effects to a shape. Here's our first example. It says add a perspective shadow to the red shape. Now I notice the blue arrow has a shadow down underneath it, and that happens to be a perspective shadow. We're going to add a similar one to this red shape. So the first thing you do is you click the red shape. That makes sense, doesn't it? Up on the ribbon there's a new tab called Format, and I'll go up to Format, and under Format it says Shape Effects. There's a lot of shape effects to choose from. One of them is the shadow effect, and there's lots of shadows to choose from. And I'm going to go down here in the perspective area. They asked me to put a perspective one, and I think I'll go for this one. It says perspective diagonal upper right. And I'll give it a click, and poof! That's all there is to it. Now there's a little shadow sitting underneath this red one. There's lots of other shadows to choose from. Let's go back up there under shape effects. So we'll turn that shadow off, and here it is, no shadow at all. And this time we'll put a different one on. Maybe we'll look at some of those presets really quick, and I'll show you some options you can do on those. One of them is an outer. You can do an outer, and it says this one is the outer offset at the bottom. I guess the shadow is going to be offset at the bottom. Let's see if that's true. I'll give it a click, and we'll see what happens. And I say to myself, where's the shadow? I don't get it. Where's the shadow? But if you look closely, there's a little tiny shadow at the bottom of this red arrow. There's nothing on top. It looks nice and clean, but yeah, I agree. There's a little tiny shadow there. It's very subtle. Let's see if we can do something about that shadow. Maybe we can make it longer. I'll give this thing a click again. I'll go back up to the Format, and on the Format is the Shape Effects. There's lots of shape effects. One of them is the shadow, and way at the bottom is the Shadow Options. I'll go for Shadow Options, and it'll give me some choices of how I can make that shadow a little bit better. Well, one of them says distance, and I can take this little slider and slide it over. Oh, look what's happening on the arrow over there. If I make this distance bigger and bigger, I get a huge and huge shadow. It's getting crazy. So you can sort of just play around with it, and you say, okay, I want an offset shadow about that far, and that looks pretty good to me, so I'll say close. So that's adding a perspective shadow or a drop shadow, and there's just tons of them to play around with. Let's go look at another example of putting an effect on a shape. We can create a 3D shape like this blue one. It sort of looks like a ball, and it's got a bit of a shimmer. It's not just a circle like this green one is. So we're going to put a 3D effect on a shape. Here's some steps on putting a 3D effect on a shape. Now this is a circle, so it says change the bevel to something called circle. Well, I don't even know what a bevel is. So I got to find out what a bevel is, and then I got to find out how to change it into a circle. Then it says make the 3D options. The top width should be about 100, and the top height should also be about 100. And that sort of makes sense because it's a circle. The width and the height should pretty much be the same. Finally, they said you should change the material to something called warm matte. You pronounce this matte. Some people say matte, but that's because they don't know what they're talking about. It's warm matte. So the first thing you want to do is give your circle a click. Think, okay, I'm supposed to change it to a bevel. So I'm going to go up here to Format, and under Format there are Shape Effects. And there's lots of shape effects to choose from. One of them is bevel. So go down here to bevel, and then I want one that says circle. So I'm going to get on this one. If I just rest on it for a moment, it'll tell you what its name is. Hey, that's the circle bevel. So I give it a click, and we can see it's got a bit of a shape. It sort of looks like a frisbee right now. It does sort of have a shimmer to it up there. Now they want me to take the 3D options and make them bigger. So I'm going to go find those 3D options. They're under bevel again, and under bevel it says, oh my gosh, 3D options. So I give it a click. Here I am at the 3D options, and I'm going to change the top width and the top height. And as I'm going to hold down this little arrow, and we're going to watch that smiley face as the width gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see it's going to sort of grow into a ball if I keep going and going. First it sort of looks like a frisbee. And it makes sense that both the top width and the top height ought to be the same. And you can see how this thing is growing, and well, it doesn't look like a circle yet, but it's sort of becoming a circle. So I'm going to do those bevel 3D options, I remember that, and make the top and the bottom. My little hint said about 100 or so. And I only made it 100 because this is how big my circle is. My circle is about 100 points big, and so my bevels should be about 100. And let's watch what happens if I make them both the same. Oh, look at that. that is starting to look like a ball. And if you play around with these little things, you'll see how they work. Just give them a try. If you go down, 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 you'll see he's got like a flat nose right now. Sort of looks like a clown nose. But I want to get him to be both the same so it looks like a nice ball. That looks pretty good. Now the last thing is to change the material. And there's lots of material choices to choose from down here. And you can change them to be this one. It says metal. Let's give it a try. And it looks shiny like metal does. Or you can change it to I don't know. How about this one? Dark edge. Let's see what that does. Yeah, I don't know if I like that. But my little instructions said, why don't you try the warm matte? And here it is, matte, and over here is warm matte. Let's give that one a try and see what it looks like. And that sort of looks good to me. I thought that was alright. And you could change the lighting as well. Play around with that and say, maybe I want one of these sunset lightings. Let's give sunset a try. Ew, I don't like that one. I don't like it. So I'm going to change the lighting. Maybe I'll change it to this one. It says harsh lighting. And I'll think, yeah, that looks like some bright lights shining on them. Or, I don't know, you can just play around with it. I'm going to leave mine on 3-point lighting. And close. There, that's 3D effects on a shape.